I had started this approach with a single memory of my dad's garage where I used to write on this word processor when I was 7 years old. I didn't have a lot to use other than this one glowing memory. In trying to recreate this space here, I found myself looking through a few VHS tapes that I hadn't really ever been able to watch before. Some experiments just fail. This one did, or I wasn't strong enough to withstand it for very long. I moved here from Los Angeles, itself as an experiment, to really focus on writing. This video is about the experiment that followed, the one that actually worked. I have a tendency to come up against really intense emotional experiences, and instead of sitting in the sensation to intellectualize and create a whole system to protect myself, and that's exactly what I did. I built one of those nightmarish deep sea iron capsules that you slowly plunge down into the water in. I know that this doesn't sound alluring for a technique, but really the water is totally fine once you learn what water is. And it started with a simple enough idea. Touching the pieces of the past, of that past, that I still had. It was a few VHS tapes, but on them something more important than the videos and the audio. It was my dad's handwriting. These right here are the objects that I have left. And I found myself just tracing his letters, part meditation, part summoning spell. I noticed Bowie doing the same thing, tracing my letters, but playfully, upside down, with extra bits. They seem to hold on loosely, and I tried that too. Not pretending that perfectly recreating these letters would bring him back somehow. This new imitation, which was still part cargo coal, still hoping that the sympathetic magic could summon something, kind of worked. My own handwriting changed, and most importantly, I think, my workaround, the way that I could trace the handwriting without completely collapsing into myself, actually became my voice and my art. There was a clue here. That workarounds are always our art and our voice. That's where it comes from. Our individual set of solutions to problems. The animation and intertitles that I use in videos here are there because I'm not great at staying on script. So I need a way of hiding my edits. Now with this workaround, I can write to it and incorporate it as technique. What I'm sharing here are not just my workarounds, but how I went about developing a whole new system for writing. It's something that you can do for yourself, and I started with a simple enough idea. You pick 5 axioms, sit with the list, edit it, cross them out, but just come up with 5 statements or images that you want to hold on to. I think about this like the things that I need to be true about my process. I encourage you to seek out your own initial set of axioms because they're going to inform what you design. And hold on to these dearly, as much as you would hold on to the spine of a work as you're writing and rewriting it. After you discover these, really don't let go. I started with the memory of the garage. I really feel the location where I write. And with the word processor and that garage, I could actually focus and stay on task. I could even write chapters. Not great chapters. I mean, I was 7 years old, but still chapters. Everything else would just disappear. It might be a memory from when writing was fun, a story that you heard about someone else, a place that you find your mind creating, that if you could just write from there, you know that everything else would follow. You might really want to just pack up a notebook, ride a bike to a coffee shop, and write there.Maybe that's what you did once and you wrote your favorite poem. Think about where you've written before, and also think about maybe what happened just before, where you were coming from, what you were planning on doing after. And treat these seriously. Know that if you discover them, something very interesting will happen, and be ready to capture that thing in some kind of project, some kind of form that will hold it for you and others. The form doesn't have to be writing itself. It can be a sculpture. Writing can lead to acts of non-writing. Think of a playwright. They're not writers, they're writers. They're makers, doers, play workers. I still had some obstacles, and you're going to have your own obstacles too. Mine were pretty clear to me, and they were the things that I don't think any writing system would necessarily fix. So what I needed to do is to work on them outside of a system. Some of these obstacles serve a function, a very important function, protecting my little ego. And I'm still trying to be accepting of them while maybe slowly digesting them and replacing them with something else or changing them to suit the me that I am today. It would be way more satisfying to just have like 5 axioms and follow those that everyone could follow and everything would be better, but I don't think it works that way, and it hasn't worked that way for me yet. My own strategy for discovering obstacles and experimenting with solutions involves daydreaming and fantasy work. It's the same work that you can do to come up with the axioms that are going to follow. In the Meisner technique of acting, which is like a branch of Stanislavski's method, passed through the group theater, what we do is we learn the techniques of fantasy work and imagination play. The basic idea is that acting is the ability to live truthfully in imaginary circumstance. So if I put myself in the imaginary circumstances that I'm a talented and successful writer, I start to think about, what does my day feel like? How does it feel to emerge from bed? What does the room feel like? What does the air feel like? What sounds do I hear? What relationship am I in? Like the real fantasy of what that life might be like for me. And then I live it. I'm in the fantasy, I compare it to what my day actually looks like without judgment. What can I add to this fantasy that would make it more fun? What can I add to it that makes it more specific to me and not just what I imagine a like real writer to want or to be like? And if it does help to imagine another writer, only pick the parts that really resonate with you and appeal to you. And they may be tricky. And by tricky, this is what I mean. They may seem like torture to anyone else. But if it's what appeals to you, like sitting in a room for 8 hours with the door closed, just working, if that's the image that appeals to you, I think you should take it seriously. Like really explore what that life would be like. How do you not just get sucked up back into the world when you leave that room? And that sort of imagination play is what brought me immediately back to when I was 7 and I started like crying uncontrollably. It was the kind of crying where you're laughing about how absurd it is to be so sad in the world. Like, does it have to be that sad to mourn the past? I don't necessarily recommend others do this and have your own initial axioms be sad or difficult things. I want to be fully transparent. From the outside, I'm not sure it will look like much has happened, but internally from the inside, this has been one of the most painful projects that I've ever taken on. And I'm not really the same person after. And there were some parts that felt dark, like dark in ways that had me embracing sadness, saturating myself in it. Is this why I hadn't been here earlier? What felt safe about this? And don't let up on the questions at this point. This is the essential moment in the process. It was for me. And I asked myself, like, what was really happening? What was causing this memory to ring and resonate? Wasn't there joy in there too? What I wanted to do is to become like Mishima, but I didn't just want to end my day on the question of the most like beautiful and important things I saw. I wanted to apply it and sustain it whenever I saw something that sparked my attention and joy.
How do you like it?
I don't like it. I love it. Dude, I'm working my butt off here. Dad,
Yes, Chris?
I'm working my butt off right here.
I'll give you 5. Oh, no, don't throw it against the door, Chris. Wrong way to shovel, Chris. If you're going to shovel and be able to do it for a long time, you have to do it slow and carefully. If you do it like that, you're not going to last. You just wear yourself out in 5 minutes and nothing will be done. You have to work slow and steady. Chris?
Dad.
Chris sleeping in the snow. Oh, what fun. What fun it is. Hey, Mr. Snowman.
Sculpture. Oh.
Hey, Snow Bunny.
What?
Hi, Peanut.
Hi, Dad. I'm gonna get you with the camcorder. Whoa! Hope there's not a stone on me. Nope, there's some snow.
Chris, you're on top of me.
Hey, Dad.
What it looks like after filing, Chris. Hey.
I'm really sensitive. Another obstacle. I'm really sensitive to rejection. Like, leave me critical feedback in the comments, but also know that I'm going to be a little baby about it. I think honest feedback is probably one of the hardest things to get from other people. It's one of the most valuable things to get from other people too. But it's also really important to get it from people you trust. And it's hard to know who to trust. So you need to be able to give it to yourself, I think, and to view your own work with clarity. But at the same time, you need to be able to survive and make things. So for me, I need to not be more critical than I can handle. And I need to be honest about, I think, the amount of internal criticism that is sustainable for me in a moment. And that might mean making bad things sometimes. I think the alternative is not finishing things. And when we don't finish things or put them into the world, they get to remain as perfect as they are in our head. And we haven't ever failed. There's no way around this in a system. I can commit to routinely making things, but it's going to hurt until it doesn't. And it might always just hurt a little bit. And one thing I'm trying to do is slowly accept that. Even though this was by far the most important thing that I had to work on, I did not treat it like that. And when I measured the amount of time I put into it compared to other activities, calling myself out for using Reddit, cannot do that anymore. It was not good. One of my solutions for this was budgeting out time every day. So I set measurable goals. I evaluate those goals weekly, and I really just work out of a calendar for now. This is an obstacle for me in all parts of my life. It's not just that I don't spend the amount of time necessary on single tasks. I'm always doing multiple tasks simultaneously. And again, I don't think a system is the thing that can help me here. What I do instead is treat it more like meditation. So I feel the urge to do something else. Sometimes I'll sit with that urge and see what it feels like, what the makeup of it is. Other times I just kind of quietly acknowledge it and then return to the task at hand. Bowie also gave me really good advice about accomplishing tasks. My 3-year-old's productivity system is do the task on the top. So those are my obstacles. For you, you may have your own set of things about yourself that you'll just have to accept or try to gently nudge into a different place. Now for the 5 axioms that I started with. Well, 6, the first one is axiom 0. It's a little trick to get yourself a bonus axiom. Part of getting myself to write, I think, is providing myself with the reassurance that what I write won't be lost, or that the pieces I edit out can be preserved somewhere. I have a few ways of accomplishing this. I keep a scrapbook document when I'm writing where the parts that I cut out can be placed. This is a lot easier for me than deleting things. But if you have a system of draft 1, draft 2, draft final, I think that actually works really well too. Having a discrete document is nice for me, but I also do the insane lettering and numbering, random character stuff with documents. We learn things, I think, by making them and putting them into action. Thoughts are fleeting. We learn by making real things before we quite feel ready to make them and before we necessarily know where that project is going. You're also, when you do this, provoking potential dissatisfaction, which isn't the worst thing in my mind. Complacency is. I also have secondary and tertiary projects that I work on simultaneously where I can feed the other bits in. I know this is not really recommended for people with impulsivity or ADHD, but for me, it works really well. And that's why I'm setting up a Patreon. My experimental content or content that's too long or short has a place to live. And for things that I want to make where I don't want to really have to worry about the algorithm and I can instead take risks or make different kinds of stuff, Patreon winds up being a great place to put that. The zine you've seen me making during this episode is available on Patreon. I made 107 of them, and the zine includes instructions, shot lists, notes, all of the kind of glittery, shimmery bits that didn't quite work in this video or the past 3 videos. And it turned out that they were a lot better in a different form. And having this zine project to provide a venue for that, to provide another place, another thing to consider, another way of focusing my attention, has a place where I know all of these parts can be encoded and remembered forever in an external object, has been, I think, a really huge gift to myself and to my working process. All right, axiom 1 is to be experimental. I'm going to sound very basic for a moment, but a bullet journal was absolutely essential for me. It's an opportunity every week to really experiment with like different spreads and trackers. It offered me exposure also to making a meaningful commitment by writing something on paper permanently. And if you're as indecisive as I am, you're going to, you just understand how difficult even laying a journal out can be. But doing that and then having another chance to try next week or next month without excessive judgment is been great. And it also, I think, really helps me keep me on task week to week. Another experiment was making a zine, which is something that I'm going to continue to work on constantly, releasing them every 4 months. Experiments which are contained, short-lived, and invite failure, I think help nudge me out of what I want to call the tyranny of conventional wisdom. Would anyone else have recommended to me that I make a zine for the videos that I'm making on this channel? Probably not, but it has been a great gift. Axiom 2, resumable, flexible. What I do for this is I use the same exact layout for my desk, like the note cards and the different piles of stuff that I place on my desk, and the windows I have on my computer every time I write. If it's a different kind of writing, I use a different layout. I record the layouts themselves on index cards and I keep those in a pile. So I know for each one, I just pull out the index card. And if I forget where something goes, I have everything marked on the index card. Longer instructions I keep in an SOPs folder so that if I'm sick for a week or if I'm working on something else and I literally forget how to write, I'm back into it again and not plagued with decision fatigue and making a million small choices about what to do and where to put it. This also gives me a scaffolding to hang new ideas, techniques, and experiments on so that I have something that is being like continually improved and that I can edit it. This video itself is a snapshot of one of those documents, right? So if I do something else for a year, I can rewatch this later on and understand what my process was at this moment in time and why it was that way. Flexibility took a long time to figure out, like a really long time. Each writing project that I work on has a folder, both in my house and on my computer. The physical notes that I write are on index cards, and they can be referenced into documents so that I can elaborate on them there, but I can also manipulate the kind of discrete atomic ideas in front of me. Anything that's on a scrap of paper or in a journal like this, I make sure to organize weekly back into either the index cards or my computer. I have a Zettelkasten on my computer, and that's what I use for ideas. My shot list, I draft on the typewriter, an experiment that I've kept around and I've worked into my system. I've had this typewriter for like 5 years. I would write things on it every so often, but I didn't have anything I would discreetly write on it because I was always so afraid of those things getting lost. Drafting also happens either on there or on the terminal back there. Editing is on this computer, and when I edit, I disable the internet because I do other things if I don't. And that meant canceling Spotify, which I also feel really good about. This video not sponsored by Spotify. I spent a lot of time setting up this terminal in Emacs to get everything synced. In fact, that was what 90% of this video was going to be about until I realized it was a huge waste of my own time and probably of yours. I'm even like very hesitant to even mention that I did this because I worry that by mentioning it and putting it into the world that someone else will think that this is a good idea. It is not. I learned how to use org mode. I moved my Zettelkasten on here, my daily journal, my to-dos, my calendar, my whole life, all of my ideas. I thought that this would be a perfect system for me because I could just write, like dad garage idea, right? Like this would be everything, but it would synthesize and be synced up. It was really hard to set up. My configuration file is over 480 lines. That is a lot of configuration. I would never do this again, but it actually kind of works. And if I ever heal from the experience and feel confident that other people won't really try to do it, I might document it. 3, schedule of work. Like I mentioned before, I am failure adverse and I absolutely need deadlines or my work will fill whatever space I give it. So I'm on a strict schedule. For Patreon videos, my work week starts on a Thursday for dumb reason. I'm just going to label the days 1 through 7 here for how I make a video for Patreon. A week. Day 1, I'm collecting and sketching out the script for a video. I'm determining the core, imagery, tone, synopsis, the potential pitfalls in making it. Day 2, I'm adding notes and ideas, and I spend the second half of the day editing. Title's already picked out at this point. Day 3 is the last pass on the script and then shooting all the talking head stuff like this. Adding to the shot list, Anything that has come up through recording this, modifying the script to match the actual transcript of what I recorded. And then day 4, any B footage, animation, titles, everything that I need to pick up sound-wise or video-wise gets done on day 4. Day 5 is editing the video, adding music, mixing. Day 6, final touches, publishing the video out or queuing it up if there's already if I have like a backlog of videos that I've made. So that's hands off now. And then I'm preparing my work for the next week and getting everything set up for future me so that on day 1, things feel approachable. Day 7, I'm just resting, relaxing. I'm not going to work on day 7. The goal is to produce 1 good video per week. I'm always collecting ideas, sorting them into potential projects for the future so that when I start on day 1, I already have this folder populated with most of the ingredients that I'll need and a lot of the ideas that I want to cover in a video. I alternate weekly making videos for either YouTube or Patreon. I'm sometimes working on a few videos at once because I have like longer month-long and year-long experiments that I'm working on. And if I'm recording a longer experiment or project, that's just how that will work. Not everything can happen in a week. Writing time is, I write every day at the same time in hopes that my own unconsciousness will kind of feed me ideas as I need them. It's kind of magic, and I totally stole this from Stephen King's great book on writing. The book is called On Writing. How I start my writing is kind of what I think most people try to complete last. That's the title, the introduction, and the table of contents. What I do is I pretend it's a review of an imaginary work that I've already completed, and this functions as a pseudo work plan. I add to it a description for every chapter, every heading, and I'm required to stop and really think about what I'm trying to write. Composing a good title is already a lot of the work, and since I want to get writing as soon as possible, I start with what I can already do and accomplish, which is the work plan. I continuously rewrite these, and this means that my work has inspired new ideas. If I was able to follow this plan without deviation, I would have missed the point completely for why I write to begin with. After these, I start with where I feel confident and where my favorite ideas are accumulating, and I just go in that direction. Axiom 4, low distraction. This is why I spent so much time syncing everything up earlier, so that I can just work from paper, from typewriter, from a terminal, offline on my computer, and I know that no matter how I do it, it'll be preserved. I have trouble resuming things, and I'm frequently interrupted from my writing. I've tried writing only at night, where I don't have any interruptions. Same thing with like recording videos at night. It's really great, but then I don't get to see my family, my partner, and my kids, and that is not great. If you suffer from distraction and working at night is what works for you, then maybe that is something you can embrace. I've also instituted some general rules. No social media, no Reddit. Like, I just can't do it. It doesn't work for me. I will blow through 5 hours in the infinity pool of social media. I curate my phone time and email time. So what I do is I pretend that all of my emails and text messages and signal messages, that they kind of work like the postal mail, and they all just arrive at a certain time, either in the morning or in the evening. And that illusion works for me. I follow my calendar very strictly. So I look at the calendar, and whatever it says to do there, I do it. And I try to fill it out for me the previous day so that future me doesn't have to make those decisions when it's like really hard and I might not want to do the thing. The hardest part was realizing that relocating my office downstairs to the larger space out there was actually a huge mistake. And it took me a lot of time to set it up. It didn't have a door, and I have 2 kids running around upstairs. And I thought that letting in those sounds would help me stay connected and I wouldn't miss them as much. But I was actually getting a lot less work done and putting on headphones, so I wasn't even able to really hear them. I just wasn't able to record anything. And I wound up spending less time and less productive time on work or staying up late when I knew it would be quiet. Instead, I told myself, and checked in with my partner, that having a door is okay, and closing it while working is something I get to do. It means treating my work seriously while knowing the true cost of each minute with the door closed. For I'm Pinterest. I dumped a bunch of images, inspirational images, but also memories, thoughts, MS Paints into kind of a single vision of what I wanted my space to look like. Aesthetic understandings of the world, I think, have a pretty bad reputation. People often think of them as like empty signifiers, somehow missing the real essence of the world. But I think aesthetic understandings are a way that we can quickly reason through the unconscious mode of thinking. Like, if something feels gross, what do we mean by that? Does that mean that there's like some absence of use value? Is that why trash is so subjective? Because our ability to make use of things in the world is so greatly differentiated. Okay, those are my axioms. I'm really interested to hear about yours. And hopefully you'll be able to look at other people's axioms. You'll be able to look at mine. You'll be able to like generate your own very large list and then experiment by switching different ones in month to month or week to week. Just like a bullet journal spread. Be basic like me. If you're having trouble coming up with them, or if there's some part of this process you don't understand, feel free to like ask me. You can email me, communicate however you like. You don't need to leave a comment if you don't want to ask in public. So if I go back maybe to this moment right here, maybe this moment right here, this was the price of admission. The price of admission. The price of admission is the cost we must necessarily pay to gain entrance. There's no admission without it. You could maybe sneak in around the side, but there's still a cost of being discovered, of being in this place for a duration of time. So maybe losing things, indulging in sadness, the lower productivity, feeling out of sorts, losing 4 months to Emacs. Maybe that's just part of the price that I'm paying for the new me. Many of the most important things that we're ever going to accomplish are going to come with a high price of admission. So high that if we learn it, we won't want to attend the show. Having a child, there is a price of admission. Making a film, there is a price of admission. Part of my cost is having my kids grow up every time I close the door. Each block of writing is another missed moment, a missed laugh, a quarter inch on the wall marked in pencil that I'm only going to see it later, undated and smudged and fading, and not even know who it belonged to or when. You too will have your own cost of admission, but it's not the main event, so don't mistake it as such. The sacrifices, time, the mistakes that you make are going to reveal a lot about you. I'm not thrilled about the amount of time that I've spent on this, but maybe it was necessary. Because for me, Los Angeles was death. And what I had to do was get up and move because the dead do not improve. Life, too, is the price of admission.
Oh, yeah. Teach them violence, Joe, right? At an early age.